This conference will now be recorded.
So Cameron, first off, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast. I think this is going to be awesome for our listeners.
Absolutely. No, I really appreciate you having me on. Excited to be here.
For sure. And I know there's quite a few people in the industry now who know who you are. But, for those that aren't too familiar with you, or, I always think it's a good conversation just to bring up the journey anyway. What's your background to your journey to your current role with IMG Learfield?
Yeah, definitely. So I feel like I have a little bit of a unique background and been in some unique roles and seen multiple parts of the business, being in minor leagues as well as pro sports, and now on the consulting and outsourcing and collegiate athletic side as well. So out of college, I went to University of Cincinnati, and from there, when I graduated, I moved to Augusta, Georgia, to work for the minor league baseball team there. That they were affiliate with the San Francisco Giants. In the year I was there, actually, the Giants won the World Series. So it was an awesome environment to be around. It actually taught me a lot about how to sell. I went down there to be a group sales rep, and I would encourage anyone to start their careers in minor league baseball, as it gives you a really good perspective on really how to run a business and a small business, but you also get to wear a lot of hats. So as a group sales account executive, I mean, some days I'd be in the concession stand, some days I'd be helping with community relations while selling some corporate partnerships, group sales, event sales, you name it, we were doing it. With such a small staff, everyone had to do a little bit of everything. But it was really neat because it really taught me how to set appointments and sell. We were really outside sales reps, which gave me a lot of great experience that helped me really get to my next step in my career. So from there, I actually went to be a account executive with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in one of their new ventures, an office in downtown Sarasota, which is about 65 miles south of the stadium. So a market that was a little bit untapped, especially from a B2B perspective. So almost going down there and starting a business with just four of us on the ground. So a lot of the focus was on group sales at first, but then as the office continued to expand and grow, we were really full menu sellers. So selling season tickets, group tickets, stadium club memberships, single game suites, and we also had a program where you could buy tickets and you'd get a bus ticket as well, and we'd actually take fans from Sarasota up on buses to the stadium. So really unique thing in pro sports. I believe it was the first regional office in pro sports at the time. So really cool perspective and a really cool way to see, a different side of the business. Not being at the home base there was difficult and challenging at times, but again, it really taught me how to sell and build value and build mutually beneficial relationships with a lot of those businesses in the area. So I spent 2.5 seasons with the Buccaneers, and at the end of my time there, I was doing a lot of assistance with the recruiting and onboarding and training and a lot of the new reps as our office continued to expand in Sarasota. And at that time, I had the privilege to meet Rob Stein, who was at that time the president of IMG Learfield Ticket Solutions. And he was looking for someone to come up and run what's called our National Sales Center here in Indianapolis. Having, personal ties to the Indianapolis area with some family here, as well, looking for my first management position made a lot of sense. So jumped at the opportunity to come up here, and I currently oversee a staff of up to 15. We're at about 10 right now. And we sell for a lot of different properties and organizations. So I oversee the partnerships and relationships with the NCAA, the Big Ten, the Indianapolis Colts, professional bull riders, the UFC, as well as exhibits division within IMG. We do some sales for the King Tut exhibit going on in Los Angeles.
That's a fascinating collection of things to be able to sell for. And I think the first question anyone that's going to be listening to this and hearing that thinks like, how do you divide up your time and your reps to be able to tackle, all those different challenges almost simultaneously?
Yeah, no, and that's a great question. With a lot of these championships, as a great example with the NCAA and the Big Ten, they're seasonal. It's a seasonal sales window. and the sales window changes all the time. So, a lot of times we have to have staff in here, but fluctuate staff a little bit by promoting people and getting them into on-site properties. But, some days we'll have a few people working on the NCAA volleyball championship. The next day we'll have people working on the UFC fight night event that's going on in Denver. So it all depends on the sales timelines and depends on what's coming up from an event perspective. So, it definitely keeps us busy over here, but it's all about focusing on what's important now and what events are coming up and, how many seats are available at each event and really deciding what's important now and what we really need to focus on at this time. For the most part, with a lot of the reps, though, they have a singular focus. But again, if we sell out of an event, we're going to switch their focus and put them in another position to be successful.
Absolutely, and I think that's a great mantra to take, regardless of what you're doing, whether it's a singular sport or you're selling 400 different things, like you are. And what's important now. I want to talk really quickly about the minor league experience, because you touched on something that I think is so important when it comes to this. I think a lot of the way that I sell and I connect with people and a lot of the successes I've had since I made that transition to Major League Soccer weren't shaped when I spent time at Teambo, but we're with the NBA, but we're actually shaped a lot more by the experiences I had, running an indoor lacrosse sales team and a women's soccer sales teams, because it gave me that 360-degree view into what everyone had to do. Can you talk about why that perspective is so important and so valuable to a young salesperson that you talked about with Augusta, and I know that I had when I was in DC and Boston?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that the experience there really showed me how important every department was to the overall success of the team. So when you have to jump in and help with operations on the field or jump in and help in the concession stands, you really understand the trials that they're going through as well. And you have a newfound really sense of what they're doing and really appreciate what they're all doing on a daily basis. So, as I continue to move on in my career, I always thought about, hey, what are all these other positions and departments doing within these organizations, and really having, a feeling of, hey, that, they're doing a lot of great things too, and everything that they're doing is equally as important to what I'm doing. So I felt like it brought a newfound sense of respect for every organization, having to, help out with each of those departments while I was in the minor leagues.
Yeah, and I think that you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that healthy respect, and then you turn around and when you start to get some more resources, you treat those other departments with respect. It's amazing how many things and how many people will say yes to you when they may say no to some other people. When you show that, you're willing to work with them and you're willing to be one of those people that helps out. You get surprised at how many times a stadium operations person might say yes when, a lot of other times if there's a rep that doesn't give them that level of respect, they say no pretty quickly.
Absolutely.
So obviously you've got a pretty diverse background, and so I'm sure you've met some pretty influential people and people who left an impression with you along the way, whether they were direct mentors or people that you sold next to. So, who were some of those people along the journey that you saw and said, that's someone that, I want to take aspects of what they do and emulate, or, someone when I grew up, I want to be type people?
Yeah. One person comes to mind a lot for me, and that was my boss at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Chris Spano, who I believe you've actually had on the podcast earlier this year as well. He was really influential to me when I was taking the job in Tampa, because when I was in Augusta, I really liked my role in minor league baseball, and I really liked what I was doing. But as I continued to talk to Chris and go through the process, I just really saw how invested he was in his people, not just from a professional perspective, but also from a personal perspective. He was someone that wanted to put people in situations where they were going to succeed, be comfortable, and be happy. And I think that was something that I really took with me. And when I got into management is, hey, like this person might be really, really good at the job here in Indianapolis, but are they going to be comfortable in their personal life? Are they going to feel like they're actually growing and developing? And is this job and this role going to actually get them towards their overall professional and personal goals. So I thought that was huge and something I really took with me and something I always really respected Chris for when I was going through the process and taking the job with the Bucks. But then, really seeing that all those things that he was going over with me during that process were true during my tenure with the Buccaneers. On top of that, the two gentlemen that I've had the pleasure to work for and work closely with here at IMG Learfield, Brad Sexton and Rob Sine, I saw the same things from them. So when I got introduced to Rob, I could see he was the type of guy, just like Chris, that wanted to see you develop professionally, but also develop personally. And Brad is my current boss, and one of the things is we don't see each other a lot as he isn't on site here in Indianapolis with me. But every time, we have a conversation or speak or we text, he's always asking me, how's life in Indianapolis? How's your family? How's your girlfriend? How are things going outside of work? And making sure I'm still comfortable, because he knows that's going to lead to us being successful as an organization if the people running these departments and the people working with us at IMG Learfield are happy both personally and professionally and feel like they have an opportunity to grow in both of those areas of their life.
So I think what you're talking about is so critical right now when you talk about yourself as a manager. And I know we'll talk a little bit more about work-life balance towards the back end and why that's so important and so critical, especially for younger sales reps. But can you talk a little bit about why it's so important to develop a young sales rep professionally? I know that seems incredibly obvious, but when you look around, there's so many teams that just look at sales reps as numbers, and yet there's way more upside than just having them hopefully make more sales when you develop them overall. Can you talk a little bit about why it's so critical to spend that time from a developmental standpoint with young salespeople and paint a picture for them what their careers can look like?
Absolutely. So with our sales team here, and I don't think I touched on it at the beginning, we have a team that's a little diverse from an experience level. So we have a sales rep team where you actually will come in, be trained up for 6 months, sell here at the National Sales Center, and then have the ability to get promoted to one of our on-site operations around the country. So we have a lot of young sellers in here, but then we also have some account executives as well as senior account executives, so more senior level sellers, that have been in sales a little bit longer. So one of the things with the sales rep team when they come in, we constantly are talking about what their goals and their ambitions are, and helping develop them and help them get to those goals and ambitions. So one of the things I always talk about in my first few days with the young sellers is, hey, look at IMG and Learfield as a whole, and look at IMG Learfield as a whole, and all the different things that you could do within this massive joint venture and within these massive companies, and look at where you really like to end up. And so we go through this exercise of going through what a lot of our partners do at each on-site, and going through and actually circling on a big map, like, hey, these are some of the schools and university partners that we'd like to get to. And we start working towards that from day one when they get on site. And, that really shows them that, hey, we want you to hit great revenue numbers here, and we want you to make sales, but we want you to come in every day knowing that you're working towards a bigger goal and working towards something that's not just, making a sale today or making your 80 phone calls today. So I think it just shows them that we're in it for their long-term development, and working with them one-on-one every week to see how we can help them get there.
I mean, I think that clear vision is really important too. One of the things that IMG Learfield is pretty widely lauded for is, their internal training and the internal structure that they have. Can you talk a little bit behind, because, I've heard it from everywhere, from heads of ticket sales all the way up to presidents of organizations who say any time spent training is time that they're off the phones. And yet I know that, at IMG Learfield, it's a pretty high priority to make sure that your reps are trained up. Can you talk about what that value is in terms of that time spent training? Yes, I realize it's not on the phones, but can you talk about how that manifests itself down the line?
Yeah, so I think one of the very unique things about IMG Learfield Ticket Solutions as a whole is, regardless if you're coming to our Indianapolis operation or if you're going into our operation at Duke or Cal or Boise State, you're all being trained with our MVP training manual. So there's consistent training going on across the board, and there's consistency in how we do things and how we sell at every university partner as well as here at the National Sales Center. So what I think is really cool is when you get into our organization, when you come into the National Sales Center, you're going to be trained and developed in a very similar way to someone that's at Boise State. And obviously the sales trainers are all going to bring their own flair and their own opinions and their own experiences into the training. But the outline of that MVP training is really important to us. And we like to, again, train that across the board wherever. So when you do get promoted or you do move on to another property or you continue to move up, we've all had the same type of training and have all gone through that same training manual. So when you're talking about taking reps off the phone to train them and it takes them away from phone calls, I just look at it as the more training we do and the more we develop these salespeople and the better they're getting, they're going to make it up for us on the back end because they're going to be more efficient. Their pitch rate's going to go up, their close rate's going to go up, and in turn their revenue numbers are going to go up, which is going to make our partners happier in the end. So, consistent training throughout our company is extremely important, and especially with the younger sales rep, you need to spend time with them daily and weekly to really ensure that they're continuing to develop and get better.
That's awesome. And I love the use of the word efficiency. I think that's something that we need to, as a profession, need to get smarter about is not necessarily making reps overtrain, but making sure that the training focuses on how efficient those sales reps are when it comes to doing their job. So you obviously have a diverse background yourself. You're selling for an incredibly diverse amount of properties right now. So I think this is a really important question. Regardless of where you've been, what you've been selling for, what your salespeople have been selling for, what are some of those sales skills that you see that are critical, regardless of what you're selling in the sports industry?
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's similarities everywhere. And regardless of where I've been, the best people and the best salespeople I've been around are the ones that can consistently build value and create mutually beneficial relationships. And I know I say that to some of my younger sales reps, and they're like, we're selling group tickets. The value is getting to come out to the game at a affordable price, and maybe they're getting an experience along with that. Where there is a lot of value in those things, but like, for example, when you're working on the team side, how are you showing your group leaders value in the off season? How are you consistently getting them to want to come out to your venue or your event instead of them trying something new each year? And so the people that can continuously show value and can continuously build mutually beneficial relationships are going to be successful wherever they're selling. So I always use an example of, you always are asking for referrals. Why don't you start giving referrals? So if you're selling in a certain market and someone new comes to town and you're trying to sell them season tickets, why aren't you referring them to your other clients as well, whether it be as simple as a mechanic, so that, they're feeling valued and they feel like, you're also trying to ease their transition to town and you're not just trying to sell them something.
That's great. One of the words you use that I think is really critical is consistently building value. That's vague in a lot of ways too, because there's going to be a lot of sales reps that listen to this that know that they need to be building value, but can't put their finger on what value is to a client or struggle to build value to a client. So to you, what is building value to a client?
Yeah. So, I do agree. It can be a little vague. There's different aspects of a membership or a group outing or being involved with an organization to each individual client. So each person's going to find something more valuable than the next thing, as it is. It's just different for each person, right? So someone might think the most valuable part of a season ticket membership is the savings on the individual game. Or someone might think the most valuable part of a membership is the additional events that you receive in the off season. So you've got to be able to uncover what makes people tick and what makes them, really get excited about that membership, so you can continually add more value on that certain area of the sale. So if someone's really, really excited about the events in the off season, like continue to invite them out to more of your events, continue to invite them out to the pregame fan tunnels, continue to invite them to those value adds. Whereas if someone else gets really excited about, the discount on tickets, as you continue to build that relationship and talk to them about groups, if you have thresholds that get them even a deeper discount, encourage them to get more people to come out with them. Show them how they can get more people to come out so they can start receiving those additional discounts. So again, value is going to be, everyone's going to find something else different that's valuable to them with your product, but it's really trying to uncover and ask the right questions to ensure that you're actually pitching the thing that is valuable to them.
And I mean, it's such a good point, because I think, when I would work with young sales reps and I'd come up to them and I'd be like, oh, so why did this person buy, anything as small as like, a mini plan all the way up to a season ticket or a large group. And the person was like, I don't know, because they spent money on it. I'd always have such deep concerns about, is that person going to come around next year? Is that going to be a good sale? Did we sell them the right thing? And yet, those reps that were so specific about why that person bought, I had a lot of confidence that wasn't going to be something that went away, that was going to be something that was truly valued by the person who bought that tickets. And sometimes we race so fast just to sell tickets that we forget to really spend time with people and make sure that we understand what they're buying and to make sure that they're buying the right thing. Because for a lot of people, what they want to buy is the path to the least resistance, or the path to spending the least amount of money, when that isn't necessarily the right thing for that client to be buying.
Definitely. Couldn't have said it any better.
Nice. So I think this is kind of a fun question, because I tend to agree with you. I tend to think there are some real truths across all of sales. But when you think about selling bull riding versus the Colts, when you think about selling women's volleyball versus selling the King Tut exhibit, or minor league baseball versus the NFL, what have been some things that you've seen that have been part of your sales process that have been pretty unique to that specific sport or event or thing?
Yeah, I think one area where I see some major differences is when you're talking the professional side versus the collegiate side. And, I feel like the collegiate side is very interesting because people have such a tie to their, their university. They have such a tie to the alma mater, and the alumni bases at those large universities that you work with, they want to continuously feel a part of the university. They feel that, if they purchase tickets or they give a donation and then purchase the tickets, that they are really improving, the student athlete experience, and that being a part of the game day experience is so critical and important to them and the school. So for me, I think it's really interesting when you're selling in college, because people just have a different level of passion in a lot of ways, because they feel that personal connection to their alma mater or to their university and their local community, because it's just such a fabric of their community and a fabric of part of who they are. So I think that's one of the big differences, and not there isn't passion for, the minor league teams or the NFL teams, but, in collegiate athletics, people really do feel just a little bit more of a personal tie, I feel like, in my experience, than with the minor league team or the NFL team. So it's really comes down to being able to sell to that passion and really understand that connection to the team.
And I'm sure there's going to be some inside sales managers too that are wondering when they think about this and they think about their training, like, how do you train, what are some of the differences in terms of training individual events versus, larger ticket packages? Because, one of the fears, right, is that, you start training some of these reps and having them sell individual events, that they start to have a hard time when it becomes selling something bigger. So how do you pull that training up out of the individual events versus those larger packages, and really make sure that the sales rep is a well-rounded sales rep when that person may only be selling some of these individual events?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And, there are some sales reps that come in here and for 6 months that they're selling an individual event and looking at individual ticket sales and only group ticket sales. But I think one of the things that I touched on earlier is everyone that's coming into our organization is receiving that same MVP sales training. So, we're going to obviously spend a lot more time when they first come in on the group and the individual ticket sales front, because that is what they're going to be selling in their first few months here with IMG Learfield. But they still go through the full spectrum of training, just like everyone else, with the season ticket training, the premium sales training, the business to business training, because we have to look at long-term development, not just that short-term gain. So regardless if they're just coming in to sell an individual event for, professional bull riders, that's what they do the whole time here. So they don't really have that opportunity to sell a season ticket. They're still getting that training on season tickets. They're still getting that training on premium sales, so that when they do have the opportunity to get promoted, they've already been exposed to that training as well.
That's awesome, and that's so smart. And I think there's a lot of organizations that would take the easy way out there and train just for that moment. And yet it's nice that you guys continue to pick your head up and look a little bit longer term, especially for your rep's sake, but, for the sake of the organization too. That's great. So, obviously you've had a chance now to have been mentored by some incredible names, and now you're someone that's doing mentoring. From your background, your experiences, or some of the stuff that you've seen or you've taken in, when you're mentoring a young sales rep, what are some of the biggest pieces of advice that you're giving them as they start their careers, sometimes even as soon as on day one?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say a lot of times I'll start giving people advice as we're interviewing them and taking them through the interview process. Because one thing that I always talk about with these younger sales reps, even before, we'd make them an offer, is, pick your boss. When you're looking at, going to an organization, like, are you going to be able to work for that person? Or do you feel that they are really committed to your long-term professional and personal development? So even before someone gets in our organization, like, I'll go speak to the colleges around Indianapolis. I was at IUPUI last week, and when people are asking me, like, hey, when I'm looking for jobs, what should I be looking for? I'm always talking about, make sure you pick a boss in an organization that's going to be fully committed to your long-term professional as well as personal development. And then once someone gets into our organization, I'm going through that same process with them as a sales rep. As we have, collegiate partners around the country, and we're always looking to put them in the right situation for them. So one general manager and one sales rep might not click the right way, but that same sales rep might click a lot better with another GM at another university partner. So let's make sure we're putting them in that right situation. On top of that, when they're getting in the organization, we talk a lot about looking at the growth opportunities and experiences you can have early in your career before picking a role because of money, location, or title. Right out of college for your first few years, a lot of times these younger sales reps, they don't have, a family yet. They might not be married quite yet. They have an opportunity that to move around and look at the experience that they're going to have and the growth opportunity they're going to have, rather than having to look at the money and the location. So I encourage all these young sales reps to look at those things before they're looking at the title, the logo, or the money in their first few years.
Oh, that's awesome. And I think those things are so critical, especially to young sales reps. And, I'm never one to step on someone's dream. If they really want to go work for the Yankees, knock yourself out and go work for the Yankees. But, I think one of the most important things is that, if you go work for one of those teams right away, your opportunity to get individually mentored, your opportunity for growth is far smaller than some of the other environments that you put in. And if you crush those smaller environments, you're going to set yourself up for a much longer career at whatever place you choose to work at next. And so, a lot of times if you've got a short-term plan to work there, it doesn't end up being a long-term plan. But if you take a short-term plan to put yourself in the best possible position, then you'll be shocked at how many things open up for you from a long-term standpoint. So what would you tell a sales rep who says, I'm from Indianapolis, I'm around Indianapolis, I got my family here, I got my friends here, I'm comfortable here, maybe I got a girlfriend here, I don't know, I'm not sure that I want to move and go out somewhere else where you think I might be a better fit?
Yeah, no, and I've come across, that's the exact situation before. And, sometimes it might be better for them to stay in Indianapolis if that's where they're going to be happiest. But I also said to them, sometimes that can limit your career growth early in your career. And I would challenge you to look at where you feel like you can learn the most and where you can grow the most. So if you believe and truly believe that's going to be in Indianapolis and you can find a role within our Indianapolis operation or with another Indianapolis sports team, I encourage you to go after that. But what I would challenge you to look at is, do you believe you're going to grow and learn the most there, or do you think you're going to grow and learn the most if you continue to move up within IMG Learfield at maybe at one of our other properties that isn't in Indy? And I always tell people, if you're going to take a chance on moving away, do it while you're young in your career, because if it doesn't work out and you don't like it, you can always move back. So, I always encourage people to just look at where they're going to learn the most and where they believe they can grow and develop the most. But, sometimes that's not the best fit for someone. And, sometimes it is, you want to stay local in Indy. And if that's what's going to make you happy, then, that's important too.
So I'm just, putting on my sales nerd hat here. I've got a couple nerd questions that I want to make sure that I ask you. So selling B2B when you're in Sarasota, 60 miles away from, where the team's playing. Like I remember when I was in Columbus selling to businesses, Ohio, and they'd be like, oh, your stadium's too far away. I'm like, it's 3/4 of a mile down the street. Just get on that road and you'll be right there. I hear that from businesses all the time. How do you get a business to make that decision to drive 60 miles when sometimes you talk to businesses that aren't willing to drive down the street?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and it obviously came up a lot. I think one of the great initiatives that I think I briefly touched on at the beginning that the Buccaneers did come up with as we were opening the office was the bus transportation package to and from downtown Sarasota, as well as from Bradenton, which is about 10 miles north of Sarasota. So we had 2 bus stops where you could actually buy a ticket to the game along with a bus package. So if you'd be talking about how, I don't want to have to drive back myself, or, I don't want to have to worry about parking and all that after I've already drove an hour. We kind of took that out of the equation for you. We'll actually transport you up for only $20 a person. So you don't have to worry about it. Just drive up the street to the bus stop and we'll drive you up and get you to the game. So I thought that was a really good and unique package that we had, and you could buy as a season ticket holder, a group member, or even as an individual. So that took some of that. And it took some of that away, but, we still had some of that. So, we really had to get buy-in from the local community that, hey, the Buccaneers are now investing in the Sarasota community. We are a part of Sarasota, and we are the local football team. Yeah, we're 60 miles away, but you don't have professional football in, the Sarasota area. You don't have a professional team outside of spring training in Sarasota. So we still are your local team. And we are making an investment in the community down here by having an office here. So we're asking you to make an investment in us and still travel up to the game, even though it might be an hour drive.
No, I love that. It's, creating solutions as opposed to letting those challenges bite you a little bit. That's awesome. The next one is, I was fortunate enough to get the opportunity to start the National Sales Center for Major League Soccer. And, I know that, running a national sales center creates some unique and different challenges. The one that I always thought was so unique was, I realized you're calling me to sell me tickets for the Chicago Fire, but I know that this is a Minnesota phone number. How do you get around the challenges with selling into one marketplace when you actually are stationed in another?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And for one, with the we actually have 2 different phones. So each rep has 2 different phones. One that's actually an NCAA phone. So when we are working on the NCAA championships, it will pop up with an NCAA caller ID. And that typically, we stop getting that question as when we continue to explain to people, the NCAA has their headquarters in downtown Indianapolis. We actually work on site with the NCAA. And with these being traveling events, with most of their championships change cities every year. Some of them, don't, but most of them do. That typically negates that objection, and people usually tend to trust that because they see NCAA on their phone. They understand 317 area code with the NCAA headquarters. On top of that, with the second phone that we have, it does come up IMG. So when we're selling either the King Tut exhibit, if we're selling PBR, or we're selling UFC, those are all under the WME IMG, which is now Endeavor hub. So typically people see the businesses see IMG come up on the phone, and it's very easily explainable. Again, we run a lot of our national sales for these events out of our Indianapolis operation. They are all owned by IMG. So, that's why we're calling you from a different area code than what you do locally.
It's good. Like I said, just like you said before, I think it's good. Creating solutions where challenges occur. I don't think that's always done enough in the sports industry. So we discussed that we talk a little bit about work-life balance, and it seems to be something that's really critical and important to you. And so you've been someone that's moved around in your career. How have you adapted to your new communities, which is a huge challenge for young sales reps, and work to also build a positive work-life balance outside of the office?
Yeah, my advice to everyone is dive right in and get involved in as much in the community as possible, especially as a young sales rep in a new town. And if you're selling locally, dive in and get involved with your local adult basketball or cornhole or baseball league or softball league, whatever it may be, just to start meeting new people. On top of that, using all the contacts you have within your organization to be able to volunteer in the community, to get involved with a nonprofit, to get out there and really meet people and really begin to make contacts in the area. Because as we all know, that's one of the big ways you make sales. You sell to a lot of people that refer you into others. So I always say, dive right into the community, get involved with different things in the community. So that's what I've always done, is really try to put myself out there and either get involved with a nonprofit locally, or get involved with the, adult rec leagues, or get involved, with a church in your community, whatever it may be. But dive right in and really put yourself out there, because it's going to do you worlds of good down the line to really dive in into your local community and get to know people.
That's great, and I've had a couple people describe you as someone who's a pretty genuine and pretty positive person. So what you're doing can be a long, and it doesn't seem like you almost have any days off when it comes to what you're selling and what you're pushing. So how do you make sure that you create a positive work-life balance both inside the office and outside the office?
Yeah, that's always a tough one. As you said, we have a lot of events throughout the year that fall on weekends, and where I can't have my cell phone or email off for a Saturday or Sunday, because there is a championship event going on, and someone might reach out, or a UFC event going on that someone may reach out. So for me, when I am really on vacation or out of the office and using a vacation day, or on a weekend where there isn't an event, I'm the type of guy that's just gonna turn my cell phone off, turn my email off, put my out of office up for a few days, and let people know that I'm turned off for the next few. So, I feel like it's so important when you don't have an event going on that weekend or that day, or you're not in the office, to really just get away from it for a little bit. Because if you're in a job like myself, where you have 70 events, 80 events throughout the year that are all over the country, different time zones, when one of them isn't going on, make sure you're turning it off and really paying attention to the people around you, whether it's your girlfriend, your family, your friends, and giving them your full attention. Because it's not going to be that you can give them your full attention maybe the next weekend. So turn the phone off, turn the email off, and really give the people that you're with and around the full attention at that time.
I love that. I think those are two awesome pieces of advice for getting involved in the community and maintaining that work-life balance. So, what drives you? What gets you up out of bed in the morning? It's my favorite question to ask at the end of this, because I think it's really important for salespeople, young and old, to hear from talented people who have created success for themselves, how they think about getting to that next level and what gets them going.
Yeah, what drives me is just being able to impact people's lives in a positive manner through either the experiences that we're selling, or if you're working as a sales rep or an ACA, for me, the experiences that this role is giving you with all these different events. So, what really gets me up is the impact that we can have on people in just a positive manner. And on top of that, what I really love is when we bring these sales reps in, we start going over on those first few days, like, hey, what would be your dream properties? What would be your dream situations that you would be in? And as we continue to work with them over the next 6 months, we find them, quote unquote, a dream job. And getting to see them really achieve their short-term goals and putting them in a position to achieve their long-term goals is what really gets me excited about this role. Just being able to see people continue to develop and grow personally and professionally is so big for me, and what really drives me in this job.
No, that's great, and I think a lot of times that doesn't happen right away. I never got into sales and thought I can't wait till I get to teach people sales. What was that moment for you when you were like, man, I think this teaching and coaching area, I think this is what I want to do? Because like I said, there's a lot of people who get into it that just aren't built for it. And yet there's also a lot of people who get into it that teaching, coaching, and mentorship really is a part of them. So what was that moment for you where you were like, yeah, this is definitely for me?
Yeah, I would say it was in my second season with the Buccaneers, and when Chris started having me help with some of the recruiting and onboarding and training of the new account executives in our Sarasota operation. I love sales. I'm very passionate about sales, about the sales process. I love to sell. But when I was going through those processes, I just started to enjoy it so much. When you see someone start to really utilize a sales technique that you taught them and really get excited about receiving that job offer, and you see them, feel like they're accomplishing one of their goals, that was awesome. That's kind of when the light bulb went off for me of like, hey, I need to get into a position in my career where the majority of my job is going to be assisting in the development of salespeople and really helping people achieve their short and long-term goals. So I'd say that second season with the Bucks, when I started to really assist with those processes, before it was even a part of my real day-to-day, that showed me a lot.
That's awesome. That I love that. There usually is some of those light bulb moments that show you that this is the path that you want to take. Well, listen, Cameron, I certainly appreciate the time. You've been more than generous with it, and continued success. And I look forward to continue to watching the climb, and hopefully maybe make my first PBR event at some point soon.
Hey, we'd love to have you out, Brett. And again, I appreciate you taking the time and speaking with me today. And again, thank you so much. And yeah, if you're looking to come out to a PBR event, you let me know, and we'll get you out to one soon.
Well, they've got the rodeo down here, and I can tell you that mutton busting is one of my favorite things I've ever seen. So if they've got mutton busting at those events, count me in.
That's great.
All right, Cameron. Thanks, man.
Thank you, Brett. Bye-bye.